John Maxwell speaker, coach and leadership development trainer. Steve has been pivotal in the growth and transformation of thousands of people nationally and internationally. He impacts leaders and teams in leveraging their personal and professional growth along with developing their leadership skills. Please welcome Steve Kane.
Good morning, everybody, and this morning I'm going to talk to you about how do you pop the lid off commitment. All right. I think recently we've all collectively sat on the edge of our seats in Australia watching the commitment of the Matildas. How did you like the penalty shootout? Anyone saw that? Unbelievable. Unbelievable. You know, there have been times where I've been a good volunteer, and there have been times where I've been a really poor volunteer. Put your hand up if you've had the same experience. Let's see there. Anyone been good volunteer, poor volunteer? Now put your hand up really high if you're the poor volunteer is sitting beside you this morning. Let's have a look. Okay, yeah, thank you. Well done, yes. Okay, so when you think about volunteering and commitment sometimes brings up positive feelings in people and sometimes brings up negative feelings, right? Because you go, oh, what does that mean to me? If I'm committed, what does that really mean for me? And so we're going to talk this morning, and I'm excited to share with you some of the things that help build commitment in volunteer teams. And so in volunteering, there are three kinds of players. The first player is the one that doesn't want the ball passed to them. Now, in this situation, high pressure particularly, it's the wrong thing to do to pass the ball to this person because they're always going to choke on it, right? They don't want the ball passed to them. That's the first kind of player, volunteer player. The second volunteer player is the one who, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the... They want the ball, but you shouldn't pass it to them. Because their ego transcends their talent. And you shouldn't pass to them. And then there's the third kind of volunteer. And this volunteer is a volunteer that you should pass the ball to. And they should play it. Because whenever this volunteer gets the ball, they have the habit of helping their team rise to a new level and push forward and achieve the things that need to be done. Now you can see that in sports teams too, can't you? Where there's a player that's injected that has a huge impact on the team. So I've got some questions up there on the screen. Which one are you? These are some questions that maybe you can think about where you are currently as a volunteer. And in Galatians chapter 6, verse 4 to 5, it says this: pay careful attention to your own work, for then you'll get the satisfaction of a job well done. And you won't need to compare yourself to anyone else, for we are each responsible for our own conduct. So when you think about your commitment, and when you think about the teams that you're on, some of you here are leaders. Some of you here are on teams and you're volunteering. Some of you are potential leaders or potential volunteers. But you only get a huge blessing when you're fully committed. Can you imagine winning any game if you're not committed? And when the ball's passed to you, what kind of volunteer player are you? Transformational movements, and we're involved in church here. Most of you are involved in church or other kinds of organisations where you might volunteer your time. They're powered by committed volunteers. Can you imagine trying to do some of the things that we do without committed volunteers? How would it work? Well, it's simple, isn't it? It just doesn't work. And sometimes on teams you have a leader who's volunteered for a position or a role that says yes, but then they have that position, but then they don't fulfill the position. And because the leader doesn't do that, guess what? The rest of the team doesn't rise above their leader. And so that whole team, that whole ministry just dies and it flounders and nothing happens. So here are some characteristics of commitment that I want to share with you. The first one is that my commitment rises with connection to the leader. So if you have a connection with the leader, then your commitment's likely to rise. So leaders, if you're here today, if you have connect with your team, they're probably more likely to raise their commitment level to what's taking place. The second one there is commitment is captivated by the vision. If you don't have a clear vision that's inspiring, that people want to push towards, then they won't push towards it. What draws you into something? Being part of something special. Being part of something you can see that will make a transformational difference in some way. And you're like, yeah, I want to be a part of that. My commitment concentrates around the comprehension of the delivery of value to people. Because if you know what your commitment is and your effort is going to, and what value is being added, that helps fuel that person's sense of commitment. The other thing is that commitment compounds over time. As you see the results of your commitment, it then gets more exciting. Commitment also collaborates with others to expand its impact. And some of the speakers last night mentioned this. One's too small a number really for greatness, isn't it? And so what you need to do is be committed and draw other people in as well. And then that expands your commitment as you fuel each other in your commitment to what it is that you're trying to achieve. So Colossians 3 verse 23 says, work willingly at whatever you do, as though you were working for the Lord rather than for people. So if you're volunteering, be a willing volunteer. Be a willing volunteer. Now, there are some rules to raise volunteer commitment, and this is based off the work of James Clear, who wrote the book Atomic Habits. Some of you might have read Atomic Habits or know about James Clear. But we're talking about how do you build a commitment habit? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to make it obvious, right? What will remind a volunteer to engage? Because if something's not obvious, if there's not some kind of cue, it then doesn't trigger the response and the behaviour to step into that. So if you want to be more committed, you've got to think, well, what are my cues? What are the obvious things that will remind me to step into that and go for a whole brand new day in my commitment and volunteering? The other thing you want to do is make it attractive, right? What need is being met? Transformations we are making. So what's attractive is if you're a part of something that's going to make a difference. So what is the transformation that we're trying to do here? So make it attractive for your team to engage in the ministry or the business that you're in. Where's the attraction there? The other thing you need to do is make it easy. If it's not easy, volunteers are not going to get into it. All right? So if you make it easy, it's helpful. And one of the ways you make it easy is by placing people in their strength zones, not their weak zones. Because if you're placing someone in their strength areas, their passion areas, guess what? Their passion pulls them, it motivates them, then they have this desire because of the passion to be committed to what it is that they've put their hand up, and they know the transformation that's going to take place. So make it easy. And the last thing is you've got to make it satisfying. Share with them. Show them the wins that matter most to them. What is it at the end of the day? Where are the achievements from it? The reward. That's really the reward, isn't it? The satisfaction of something that has made a difference and that you've been in an incredible team with. Now, I've had the opportunity to be on teams and lead teams where I had very poor volunteer engagement. And for whatever reason, I just couldn't sort of pull it together, okay? And there are some things I realise that I did wrong and that I've learned from, and these are some of the things that I'm sharing with you today. And there are other times I've had an opportunity to be on a team that had incredible volunteer commitment. And we achieved some amazing things and were able to transform situations to make things better for the King and the kingdom. Which team do you think I enjoyed being on the most? Which team do you think those volunteers enjoyed being on the most? Now, if you've got high levels of commitment in volunteering and you're a leader, here's something that we need to make sure that we do. And that is to take care of our committed volunteers particularly. So, for example, in this church, we've targeted the leaders of the church to care for spiritually first because they're always giving. We want to take care of those committed volunteers first. People too often overvalue their dream and undervalue their team. Don't do that. You might have a dream. It might be an amazing dream. But don't overvalue that and undervalue your team. Take care of them. Give those committed volunteers an opportunity to say no. Hey, please, you can say no. Give them an opportunity to take care of themselves. Even Jesus did that, right? Hey, he went, I need to be alone for a while to pray. I need time out. We need to give time out to our committed volunteers without them feeling guilty about that. We want to send the message that who you are on the team is more important than what you do on the team. Transformational movements are powered by committed volunteers. And so if you can understand the characteristics of commitment, if you can look at some of those things that you can put in place to raise the bar of commitment, then with God on your side, I believe that you can empower volunteers to make a massive difference for the King. Just push the next slide, please. For the King and the kingdom. May God bless you as you head for a volunteer victory and take ownership by starting with you. I want to be one of those volunteers that people are glad that they